Hello there, I'm Steve Lycett from Sumo Digital. You may know me from such games as All-Star Racing Transformed, OutRun 2 and SEGA Superstars Tennis. You are listening to the SEGA Lounge.
Welcome to the SEGA Lounge, where we celebrate our love for all things SEGA, including the games, the music, and the community. I'm your host, KC. Join me as I talk to different guests and learn more about their projects and passion for SEGA. Welcome back to the SEGA Lounge. I hope you guys enjoyed last episode's roundtable, which was dedicated to Sonic Frontiers, and also the first of that kind of show that we had this season. More to come on that style very soon. If you missed it, check it out at thesegalounge.com. This week, though, we're back to the interview swing of things with a very, very special guest, who I'm sure everyone will love getting to know a bit more. Who is it? Let's find out. I'm really excited here. It's Steve Lycett, guys. Steve Lycett is here. This week's guest is the legendary Steve Lycett, executive producer at Sumo Digital, and the face that the SEGA community got to know throughout the All-Stars years. Steve and his team worked on such iconic titles as the arcade to Xbox conversion of OutRun 2, OutRun 2006 Coast to Coast, SEGA Superstars Tennis, Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing, and of course, one of the games I own more versions of than I can ever play, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. I got the chance to have a very nice chat with Steve, get to know a bit more about his start in the industry, and hear some behind-the-scenes stories of his work on the aforementioned SEGA games. Enjoy! Hello Steve, welcome to the SEGA Lounge. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure to have you. Proper legend, Steve Lycett. It's really, really nice to have you on the show to talk a little bit about your background with games and the industry. But Steve, usually I like to start from the very beginning. And usually when someone gets to working with in video games and in the industry, there's a reason behind it. So how did you actually get into video games as a gamer, first of all? How did you discover games and what impact did they have on your life?
Wow, okay, so that's an easy one to start with then. Funnily enough, because I've been doing a bunch of questions for Sumo stuff we're doing, because Sumo's 20 years old, just to kind of explain it. And they asked me a very similar question. So when I look back, my first formative memories of computer games, because I am ancient, I am so old. My dad built a ZX81, which is was a computer in the UK. You could buy in a kit form, or you could buy ready assembled. Can you imagine that? But my dad was a tinkerer; he liked to mess with electronics, and he bought this thing as a kit and he built it. Now, for my dad, the interest in the computer ended there because he'd made this thing. And as far as he was concerned, he built it, it worked, and that was the end of it. Wasn't really bothered with it. So he kind of gave it to the kids. So I got it because I was the oldest. But for me, like all of a sudden was this thing. I could plug it into a TV, I could type on it, and it did stuff on screen. And I could get it to do the kind of things I wanted it to do. It was like I made a program for my club of my friends so we could tell each other secret passwords. And then one day he came back with an extra RAM pack, 16K of memory, and he bought a game, and he bought QS Scramble. So Scramble, the famous Konami arcade game, of course. This was some not official conversion, and it was amazing because it had scrolling, so you had a ship which went across the screen, and you could both move and shoot at the same time. And at that point, I think I was hooked. I saw that, and I just wanted to make versions of that game, and that's what I did. I messed around with that. I learned a little bit of machine code. I did a lot of basic programming. it got upgraded because my dad saw I was interested in it. So we got to a ZX Spectrum, which became an Amiga, and then I got games consoles as I got older, and I've just followed it from there. So basically, it's all my dad's fault.
Okay, let's blame your dad then.
Yep,
Okay.
it's my dad's fault.
So always from the perspective, or not always, but at least from the very start, from the perspective also of a programmer as well as of a creator
A
in
little
a
bit,
way.
and I think that's it. It tapped into. I'm not very artistic.
Mhm.
I would love to be able to play a guitar or ukulele. I'm trying to learn the thing. But I am fairly scientific. So programming was like a language where I could type this thing and it would do something I wanted it to do. And it was logical. It had rules around it. It's like mathematics. You can learn it.
Mhm.
And I found that fascinating. And I don't program today. I don't, because I can't program to the level the guys who work with me work at. They are geniuses. There's no two questions about it, but I know enough about it to be dangerous. So, equally, if somebody goes, "Oh, this is impossible," I'm going to go, "Well, actually, no. If we break it down, we could do it like this." And they're like, "Oh, he knows a little bit about this." Damn.
Ah.
So, it's been useful. And it's always been there, that kind of scientific interest. But you can
Mhm.
be super creative with it. So, being creative in a way which doesn't need you to be artistic. What a gift. So yeah,
Yeah, makes
definitely come from
sense.
that angle.
Makes sense. Okay. And as we know, you have worked on several Sega related or even Sega IPs or related IPs. Was there like a big relationship between you and Sega as a gamer before that all of that happened?
Well, so the interesting thing was, as a kid, I tend to have Nintendo systems, which really upsets people when they talk about it. And if you ask me my favorite console of all time, I would probably say PC Engine of all things
Okay.
because of the CD-ROM.
Hmm.
But I had a massive upbringing with Sega. 'Cause my friend had a Mega Drive; he imported it, and both of us ended up working in a software shop, a game shop in town called Just Micro. And so imagine a kid obsessed with games let loose in a shop with all the games you could ever want, and you could play in between dealing with customers. So it was perfect for me. So we had the Mega Drive, we had the Master System. These were permanently set up. So at any
Hmm.
time, I could just literally play any game I wanted to. And what that did, unknowingly for me, is it built this library in my head of all the kind of classic Sega stuff from the kind of console era. And around that time, of course, Sega were absolutely massive in the arcades. So
Hmm.
I still maintain my holy trinity of Sega, the whole Yu Suzuki games, is Space Harrier, Super Hang On, Afterburner. You look at all those things. Outrun, again, one of my favorite games of all time. So I knew Sega from the arcades, but then I learnt Sega on the consoles. And
Okay.
because you could play those games on the consoles and, to various qualities, I grew up with this stuff and it just seeped in. I worry sometimes that the amount of noise I've got playing games and learning games is going to fill my brain up and I'm going to forget something important. but, but that's how it started. So
Okay.
I tinkered with it, I played with it. It became a career almost because I worked in a
Hmm.
shop with it, and it just went downhill from there, I think.
So, how did you go from working in a shop to working in the actual industry?
Well, the interesting thing about Just Micro was it's actually quite famous in the UK because the guy who set Just Micro up recognized in the shop people were coming in who were looking at games and saying, I could do better than that. And he took a bit of
Mhm.
a punt and he created a firm called Gremlin Graphics. And he basically
Oh.
hired some of those kids to make early computer games. And it's people, many gamers might be respectful. So, Tony Crowther, you'll hear Peter Harrop. These are guys who still work with me today, which is kind of nice. And so he made this software company off the back of the shop. And then he moved into that. And the shop was still a going concern. And it was almost like I don't want to say recruiting ground, but it was like an interesting place for him to demonstrate software, which then pulled in more people, which grew and grew this company. So I started at Just Micro. I think I was a Saturday lad in about 1989 or something like that, around about when the Game Boy came out. And I knew this company was upstairs, but never really had many dealings with it. We used to do their mail order. So if somebody ordered the game from Gremlin, the order would come down to us. We'd put it in the bag. We'd post it off. If somebody wanted to buy a Gremlin game, we bought them from upstairs. It was much easier than trying to buy it from a distributor.
Yeah.
It was a ready-made asset. Eventually, Ian sold the shop off. I stayed with the shop. and Gremlin became Gremlin Interactive.
Hmm.
And many years later, one of the guys I worked in the shop with was actually working in the games company. I bumped into him in town, and he said, "Oh, they're looking for people to come and work at the company. Would you be interested?" I'm like, "What do you do?" He says, "Well, I sit and play games all day and get paid for it." I'm like, "Why would you think I wouldn't be interested?" And so I started at Gremlin in '97 as a games tester, and
Hmm.
and that's what I started. And I think anybody who's interested in gaming industry, I think it's still a valid path, because when you work as a games tester, you see common mistakes that development make, ways you design an interface or way the game works, which breaks, and it teaches you a lot of things not to do later
Hmm.
on when you're in charge of making games. So it was almost like, if you think about it, tinkering by myself, my dad gave me the first step. I worked at the game shop and learned a lot about games there, so that's kind of the next step up. I started then as a games tester, so I was getting educated into how to make games over the course of my lifetime and never realizing it. so I've been very, very lucky with that. And at Gremlin, I stayed there and I worked up from games tester to, I was head of QA, I was QA manager for a
Hmm.
while. And then the guys I really recognised, who I loved working with, were the producers. Now, the producers is a person who looks after the team of people. Nominally, they get given a bunch of time, a bunch of money, work out what you need, go and make a game. You're responsible for it. But what I saw in that was they're kind of like a circus ringleader. So they've got all these people who are really talented, and they kind of corral them along, and they sit down and work the problems through with the programmers and the artists, the designers and the audio people, and they basically work with that team to create these amazing things. But because you're right at the middle of it, you've got like an enormous influence over it. So if you want to push it in a certain direction, as long as you're good at convincing people to stick some silly things in levels, then you can basically get away with it. So, you still got to worry about the business, you still got to worry about the time and money, but that was the job I wanted. And I
Okay.
realized that fairly quickly when I worked at Gremlin. And so I pushed and pushed and pushed until I got it. And that's really, I've stayed around that sort of role position now for many, many years. I've just taken a step into more senior management. But that for me, what a dream come true. You can't fault it. And again, it's luck. Just that, if I hadn't bumped into that guy on the street on that date, would never have happened. Sometimes it's about who you know, the situation which happens. It's just more luck than judgment. But yeah,
Very
been
true. Very
what
true.
a
Yeah,
ride.
and I had no idea that was like there was a relationship between Gremlin Interactive, how I knew them, and like a video games shop.
And that's the madness of it. Is you can see how it's got out of control. So there you go.
Yeah, excellent. And that was a very good explanation of what a producer actually is.
Oh, good. I'm
You
glad.
know, from throughout the years, I've interviewed many people who have been producers in games, and they always struggle to explain what a producer does because I think there are many things right that a producer does.
Yeah,
It's many things involved in the role, but that I think is the perfect explanation. Like you're in the
yeah.
middle of it.
I'm glad. You
Yeah.
are. You're in the middle of it, and it's one of the conversations I have a lot with people is I have to remind people that production is a support role. It's not about being in charge. It's not
Hmm.
about you are nominally in charge. You have to make a final decision on stuff, and you make some big decisions. But it's working with the talented people that you've got. If you can't, if the designers can't express an idea to the code team, and the code team can build it, the game doesn't get made. If the code team can't make something happen for a technical reason, we can't solve it. We can't deliver the design vision. If the art team use too many polygons, it just runs terribly and it looks awful. So trying to coordinate it, like somebody running an orchestra, a conductor,
Hmm.
that is broadly what it is. You basically you help people, you convince people. Sometimes you're the team dad or mum if somebody needs, they've got a number of times, like you help people because they've got a situation in their personal life and they need
Hmm.
time off or they need a bit of advice, and you become the person they come to and look to and trust. So you've got to be a bit of everything. It's
Hmm.
really, I can't express that. Again, I'm the oldest of three brothers, and the fact that I used to have to look after those idiots has helped me so much in my life, because it's helped me be patient and understanding, and
Mm.
to be able to sit down with somebody and go like, okay, what you're doing is not bad, but it's not working. Can I suggest we try this instead, or help them along? So all my life I've been preparing for this randomly.
That's true. In one way or another, everything led to this moment, to
Yes.
this role, right? Yeah, and it's nice that you mentioned that, like the people skills involved, because it's not something easy to do if you're not not good at dealing with people.
Yeah,
Maybe being a producer is not for you. I
it
feel
depends. Again, this
depends
is
on
what
your
I say.
style,
It doesn't
maybe.
have to be
Right.
everybody's way, but producers come in different flavors. So you might have somebody who's more led by the data. How many bugs have we got? How many tasks have we got? Are we before, behind the data? You need to have a little bit of that, but some people specialize in that. And I can tell you, some of those people are not interesting people. Sometimes it's the other way. You have people who are really good at managing people, but they're not super computer literate. They'll
Mhm.
try and write a plan or put in Excel, and you just go, "Oh, that's awful." But they are great at managing people, and they get results out of standing in stand-ups or scrums or whatever it turns out to be. Everybody's different. You've got to find a way
Mhm.
which works for you. So again, when I've got a production team of multiple people, I try and look and find out what's they're good at and use them for that. And if they're bad at it, help them out a little bit, try and train them, but push them away from it as well. So
Okay.
it's very much people management.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like it. Okay. So you mentioned Sumo Digital turns 20 this year, right?
Yes.
Yes. And I think you've been there since the very beginning, or am I
Almost,
wrong?
very almost. So
Almost.
I missed
Almost.
it by a month.
Okay.
So what happened is so this is the history. So Gremlin was a big firm. It was well beaten all the rest of it. It was bought by Infogrames, who
Hmm.
became Atari. We became from Gremlin Interactive to Infogrames Sheffield House. There I did two games. As a producer, I did Wacky Racers on PS2, and I did Superman: Shadow of Apocalypse. There's an interesting video game challenge.
Yeah.
You make a video game where the main character's invincible. Okay, good luck with that. Um, so we had fun with that. And then basically they chose to close Sheffield down. They
Hmm.
expanded rapidly, and they were trying to just make more thing. I think they were pulling back more towards France. They got operations in America. We were seen as surplus to requirement. Now
Hmm.
that was sad. But what happened is it led to the creation of Sumo. So that was good. So think off the top of my head, I think 12 staff with the founders of Sumo went and said, we can probably still make video games. There's a market for this, set up by themselves. And a month into it, they gave me a call and said, we could do with some help. We need to send somebody up north to go and work with Revolution Software. They're trying to get Broken Sword 3 done. They've got to deal with memory cards and controllers being pulled out. You're an expert in QA, but also if you do that, there might be a production gig afterwards. Are you interested? So I took a chance on it, and it worked out all right. so 20 years later, I'm still here. So back
Okay.
then, I think Sumo started. We'd done a bit of work consultancy. We helped Broken Sword out. We helped out Codemasters on England International Soccer. We did the online
Hmm.
multiplayer for that on Xbox Live, which turned out to be really important because Microsoft were approached by Sega, and they said, we want to convert OutRun 2. We're looking for people out there, who you would recommend. And they said, well, what are you trying to do? And they went, we think we need to add online to it. You should talk to Sumo.
Okay.
And I think at that point, we got OutRun 2. And very shortly after, we ended up working with Codemasters on Tokka Race Driver 2 for PSP, almost at the same time. And those two games basically rocketed us and got us going. And we had to expand relatively quickly to bring people in to make those two games. So yeah, that was the start of the Sega relationship, and what a way to start it with OutRun 2.
Yeah, definitely. What was it like for you? You said OutRun was one of your favorite games in the arcades as well, right?
Oh well, it was. So here's the madness of it. So I've been following OutRun 2's development on various arcade websites because I knew it was coming out in the arcades, and I had no idea that we were pitching to do it. Apparently, and I don't know how true this is, so take this with a pinch of salt. Um, Sega had approached not just us, but a few other places, and I know this because Gareth Wilson, who was the lead designer on Sonic Racing Transformed,
Hmm.
used to work for Bizarre Creations, and apparently Bizarre
Okay.
Creations also pitched for it. Interesting. Now, what it swung it for us, at least as far as we think, we're not certain about this, is everybody else at the time, they was all into the kind of Need for Speed stuff for car modding, so they were bolting on spoilers and they were trying to make it all about modifications. Where what we did is we looked and went, this is great. So what we need to do is preserve it, make sure it is, authentic to the arcade version.
Hmm.
But we also respect it's going to be 40 quid, so we've got to make sure there's like good value for money. So we added the online modes, we added the kind of adventure modes. You go through collecting the cards. We did all that to kind of bulk it out a bit, so it wasn't just 5 minutes of playing, you're done and dusted. There's actually a lot of
Hmm.
stuff to do and engage with. And that apparently won us the pitch because AM2 took a look at it and went, these guys get it, they respect it, give them the gig. And so off we went. And they told us, they told us in the office, we've got OutRun 2 just completely out of the blue. And I went, what? Because I'd listened about an hour before going, look, OutRun 2 looks great. I'm looking forward to OutRun 2. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to convert this. What?
What?
So it's quite a moment because, again, at that time there were 14 of us, I think, in the office because I was in
Hmm.
player number 14. And it was just completely out of the blue. And we were so excited. The very next thing we saw was them wheeling the arcade machine into the office. So, like, before we touched anything, before we got code, it's like, right, let's do some research. We'll spend, I'm getting paid to sit and play OutRun 2.
Yes,
Oh my
research.
God.
Yes, yes.
So that's what we did. We all tried to beat each other's times on time trials. So just great fun. So yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So that's a very that must have been a very fun gig. I have,
Oh God,
I
yeah.
assume. I
Well,
assume.
it was, but again, you've got to remember this is a new company. We're
Hmm.
sort of unproven. We've never done a full game conversion, so there was quite a lot of pressure on us to kind of
Yeah.
deliver that. The time frames, I think we had to get it done, dusted, and out in 6 months. Again, because Sega were keen to get it out to market,
Hmm.
and we got the source code. So when we got all the assets, we got everything. The problem was the original arcade machine runs on a Chihiro board. It's 128 megabytes. It's twice the memory of an Xbox. So instantly we've got to halve everything to make it fit. Then internet online infrastructure, it's not as it is today.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
really made an online game. Xbox Live was new. We'd done it for England International Football, so we had to hack it in. There was network play on the arcade game, but we've got to get that working as well.
Hmm.
Then it's got to load off a very slow hard drive rather than from RAM, because the arcade version, it was all in RAM. It was loaded up and permanently on there, so super
Hmm.
instant access. So daft things like you drive through the junction, and the level has to load while you're driving through the bunkie of the junction thing. And sometimes, of course, you get to the end, it hasn't loaded. In fact, that was quite frequent in the early days. So you just run into a brick wall, the timer's going down, and then eventually the level will pop up, and then you can continue. So we had to do a lot of stuff to kind of sort that out. The source code was in Japanese. Now, these days, you would probably just run it through Google Translate, but Google Translate didn't exist. So we found an online web translation service and then got kicked off it because we munged all the source code comments, pushed them through, and then pulled them back out. And we went over their limit.
Oh, okay.
So there were lots of challenges doing it, and in kind of 6 months, but do it we did. We pulled it off.
Hmm.
Uh, and I like to think we did a pretty good job of it. So I think
I
that
think
then put
so.
us on the map because people saw that, saw what we could do, and that opened up not just more work with Sega, but with other publishers. And we started to get people coming to us interested in working with us because of the
Hmm.
quality we'd done on OutRun. And again, it sort of ballooned from there. So
Yeah,
that in
and
it.
I kind of think I think that's a little bit like what you say. It's sumo is synonymous with quality. I think. Yeah, I think we everyone kind of associates sumo with a good game,
Thank
whatever
you.
it is, right?
No, that's good. We try our best to think about the player.
Hmm.
Obviously, our client is the customer. It's the publisher who's making the paying us to make the game. But we've always tried to do this, and I think this is what sets us apart. Is we go, if I were to buy this and I was to play this, how would I feel about it? Am I gonna be happy about it? Now, making games is hard. Don't let me get this undersell this in any way, because you might have a vision of what you want to do, and trying to make that happen is hard because you've got the technical challenge of just making it work. You've got the design challenge of trying to explain that design to the people making the game and all the rest of it.
Hmm.
So I can see many people set out with the best intentions to make something great and struggle because it's difficult. The benefit that Sumo always had was the people who started that company had already gone through that struggle for nigh on 20 years. So with a lot of experience came into the company, and we obviously took the best people we could at the start who were willing to come and form it, and we've tried to keep that mindset all the way through. But thinking about the player is always like really important to us. I laugh at the Sega. Any game I've ever been involved in, watch again. It's at the very end. It always ends with a thanks for playing because it's just a little message like you've got this far. You've played all the way through this. Thank you. We made this for you, and we hope you enjoyed it. so yeah, that is kind of our ethos, and I hope that does come through.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does. Yeah. And so, speaking of not just OutRun, but maybe carrying it out to all the other Sega, and not just Sega, but mostly Sega, how hands on were they in terms of the work that you did for them?
It's when the game boots up Outrun, the first thing you see it's in Sumo Digital in collaboration with Sega, or Sega in
Mm,
collaboration with Sumo Digital. I've done and it's been a partnership. We work very very closely with M2. The producer flew out, Minato-san. He sat with us in the office. He was in the office like 12 hours a day and just making sure stuff was done. He helped us with translations. He helped us talk to people in AM2. So they had started the controller support. They had very definite views about it, how tight the steering needed to be, but they didn't have time to finish it. So again, we worked with them, and language differences slightly problematic. We worked with them to get it kind of sorted out, and we just basically made sure that at all steps they understood that we respected what they made and we wanted to be authentic to it. So it's been hands-on like that for every project. With Outrun, it was AM2. When we started doing virtual tennis, it was working with AM3. We got people again.
mhm,
We went out to Japan. We explained what we did, what we wanted to do. They came and helped us. And if you look at it, it went Outrun, virtual tennis. We did virtual tennis on PSP, and then we did Outrun 2006. We went back to AM2, and we did that, and then we went back to AM3 and did virtual tennis, and then that's really the point where the doors opened to a lot
mhm,
more of Sega, because they'd seen this kind of collaboration going off between the Outrun games and the virtual tennis games, and they kind of wanted a Sonic game with tennis. And I think what we've done hilariously, we put a big head cheat in for Tim Henman in virtual tennis with this massive head. Somebody had seen it and went, "What if that was Sonic?" And we're like, "Ooh!" And that became the thing. So because we'd shown that degree of respect and authenticity, we were allowed then to explore kind of different properties, and Sonic was natural. But I like to think that if you've got Sonic in a game, you need to balance it out. If you're all Sonic, that's fine if it's a very Sonic focused title, but there's so many great Sega IPs you want to explore. So you Space Channel 5, we've got Golden Axe, you can reel them off like no trouble. And for me, an ensemble cast was kind of interesting, and they wanted to do that too. And so what happens is, and this is unique to Sega, I think, if you work at Sega and you create one of their franchises, be a character, a game, or whatever it turns out to be, the director, the owner of the franchise, becomes the hold of that property longer term, off into the future.
mhm,
So if you want to use that character or franchise, you have to go and talk to that person and get an agreement. So some of these people are easygoing and they want you to use their property, and some of these people are very exacting because they've spent a lot of time and effort making a perfect game, and they want to make sure you are respectful to that IP and you
mhm,
you, you basically replicate it as closely as possible. So it was always an interesting thing at the start of a project to fly out and go, "Hello, we're from Sumo Digital. We want to make this game. We want to use your character in this game, or we want to use levels from your game and our game. Can we sit down and have a conversation?" And it was an awkward, you go into those meetings kind of going like, "I really, really, really want to get this character. I really want to get this level." And literally do a bit of a sales pitch, tell them what you wanted to do, show them some concept artwork, and get them on board. Um, and it was fascinating how so at the start, some people were a little bit standoffish. Who are you? We don't know you. You never worked with us kind of thing. We've got no
yeah,
time for you. And as we went through tennis to racing to transformed, those opinions changing and actually them coming to us going, "Oh, we've got this. Would you like us to use it?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." Sometimes it would it makes sense in the game, and
mhm,
sometimes it wouldn't. So I actually felt bad about turning down things like Sega Race TV. Would you like to use it? Well, it's not really fitting in with the transform theme. How's that going to work?
mhm,
Again, they did the tune game. We actually sat and played the work in progress of that one, went across to AM2, and they went, "Do you want to use it?" I'm like going, "It's sort of not what we need. I'd want to use Outrun." I'm like, "Why do you want to use Outrun? It's ancient." I'm like, "Because it's more fitting with the." So it was great. Honestly, just one of those chances to meet people who are your heroes. And again,
mhm,
think of that kid in the game shop. playing Sonic. And I'm sat there with Sonic Team going, this is weird. This is proper weird. So, it's always been great that those opportunities came and they were so
Mhm.
willing to embrace us. But it was always a collaboration.
Mhm. Mhm.
Everything. We concept artwork to pictures to early prototypes to white boxes to design documents. They check it, they make sure they're happy with it, they give you feedback all the way through. And that's the way it should be. If you're going to try and recreate something or bring something important in, you've kind of got to do that research. You've got to do that kind of attention to detail. Um,
Yeah.
you know, so
And I,
many
and I
weird
think
stories from
in
that.
the All Stars games, that attention to detail shows, and people get like the little nods and little Easter eggs and the little
Well, that's
inside jokes. So that's nice.
and it became so it became kind of mad because we'd done it for tennis and we wanted to up the game for racing, and then we really
Hmm.
wanted to up the game for transform. We're gonna do something this time. We're gonna go and knock it out of the park. And it was like we were trying to one up ourselves. Even the achievement names were like references to
Yes,
Sega games,
yes, yes.
and we were sneaking like characters into the backgrounds of tracks. We got Ristar snuck into the Death Egg because it was just funny. And then when we did, obviously, when we brought that track back for Transform, because we did from racing to Transform, we were like,
Mhm.
we'll make Ristar the flagman because Knights is now going to be driving. So we've got Knights as the driver. Then let's not talk about Knights. But what are we going to do to replace Ristar? And I was trying to convince Andy, who was the art lead, we've got to put Vectorman in there. The number of times people talk about Vectorman is like, but it's just a pile of balls. They're not going to get it. We should.
Mhm.
I didn't get it in the end for reasons, but it was always like, how can we sneak some more in? How can we do it in a way that people don't expect?
Yeah, and I remember the Transform day, the hype before Transformed, and how open to the community you were as well at the time.
It was
And
silly,
you
weren't
you
it?
shared you shared information, and people obviously requested everything they wanted. Was there a point during development that you felt, or anyone in the team felt that, like, we shouldn't have done this, we should have just kept most of this in secret, and oh, people are requesting things we can do, this is too much?
The only thing I ever regretted doing was that poll on the Sega forums to go, which character would you think we should put in? If I could put another character, because that just got way out of hand. But to be honest, it ties into think of the player ethos. So
Mhm.
on tennis, we didn't really talk a lot to the community, but we got a lot of feedback after the game came out, and we thought,
Mhm.
well, these guys, the people who buy the games, if we can involve them in some way to, see what ideas they've got, what did they like, what didn't they like, what would they like to see, can we find a way to get it in? Because as far as we're concerned, we were just trying to get more content in and try and define it. And for racing, I picked up all the gaming forums and I just went on the occasion, just asked them questions, give them ideas. Like what would you like to see if you did a sequel to tennis? If it was, let's say, it was a racing game, what would you like to see? And it was really beneficial because you felt like you were talking directly to the audience who were buying your game. These were the
Mhm.
people who were materially interested in what you're doing. You did a bad job. This version didn't have online. Should have had online. All right, fine, we'll do that. We'll fix that. This character should have been in, and everybody's got a favorite character they want, which is sort of fascinating in itself. There's an entire video on that. I'm sure you can make. So we engaged with it, and I thought it helped us to make a better game. Now, Sega kind of tolerated it. They saw it was interesting because we got a connection with the community, and they didn't discourage it, but they were like, "Why are you doing that?" And it's like, well, it's kind of useful. It's interesting. It's useful for us. And on Transform, we kind of stepped it up a gear. And I think what was kind of interesting was it almost served as like a development blog in a way. It's the kind of thing you actually see now from developers or marketing teams. They try
For
and be a
sure.
bit more open with the community and pull them
Yeah,
in.
for
But
sure.
again, it was not. We're
It
not
was
set out
fairly
to
new
do
at the
that. It
time,
was
yeah.
just. It was just. It was nice every so often to have a chat with the community. We talked to them racing, tell them about Transformed, and then as we knew the big marketing beats were coming, so there's going to be like a new track revealed or the character revealed, we'd actually, hype it up a little bit, go, oh, you won't wait until you see this thing. And then go and enjoy the reaction and be part of it. So, did you like it? Would you change it? And it used
Mhm.
that to do it. Now, we found it really valuable. Amusingly, some of the dev team said it was really useful because they read that to find out what was going on in the development of the game. So it was almost like a useful resource for the team working on the game as well. Um, and it's something I kind of miss. The Sega kind of let us do it, as long as we never revealed anything which was going to be part of their marketing strategy. They were going to
Okay.
announce a character. Don't reveal stuff which hasn't been publicly announced. But once it's out there, feel free to engage with the audience and discuss it. So we kind of did, and I do actually miss it. I miss talking to that community because it was like a moment everyone could share. You've watched a new episode of The Mandalorian, let's say something like that, and everyone's really excited after and wants to discuss it. It felt like that, and you were looking at it almost as a fan rather than the person making it. So that was kind of bizarre. So I loved it. I think I'd like to do it again. The game I'm working on now, I can't do it because of the secrecy around it. There's a lot of secrecy, so you can't really do it, and I miss it. And that's kind of mad. So again, that's why I enjoy doing these kind of things, because it's just a chance to kind of recapture some of the fun.
Excellent. And I was kind of surprised when you said at the beginning that you grew up with Nintendo mostly, because I watching those shared reactions to those moments of announcements and whatnot, I felt like you were like a major Sega fan since you were born or something like that, because that's what we got on this end. What was that you guys were big fans of the work
and we
that you
are
were building upon.
So don't think I'm not, because I was brought
Yeah,
up
yeah,
with
yeah.
Nintendo, because that's what my dad bought. He bought a NES, and then he bought a SNES, and
Of
then I
course,
didn't get a Mega Drive because it's like, you've got one, you're not having another one. But that love was always there from the arcade stuff. So I bought the Spectrum version of OutRun, and let me tell you, that is not an accurate conversion. Even if you increase the processor speed fake by 3 times, it's actually all right. But it was a disappointment. So I've always had that love for
should have
Sega.
gone with the C64 one that has like the cassette tape with the soundtrack.
That at least had the right.
It's worth for that
color.
Yeah.
So it's for benefit. So it's kind of fascinating. So we were, and I think again, this is a sumo thing. Whenever we make something, no matter what it is, we kind of invest ourselves in it. So whether it's OutRun or tennis, or it's the transform stuff, or you look at track and field again, I think that house style, I'm going to say, that those guys who worked on that game lived and breathed Konami and understood what was important to Konami. The fact you've got like Pyramid Head in that game as a character, what genius! I just love that, and it was that madness. So whenever we were working on a game, we were just so involved in the IP. We were talking with the people who made those games. We became experts on it as a side effect of that. And again, it's authentic because we loved it. We loved doing it. And when you're talking to everybody else, I think that enthusiasm carries, and it is infectious. It gets everybody going. Again, as a leader of a team, as you sit down and you're the producer, you want to get that enthusiasm going. Like, do you know what? This is going to be great. We're going to do this. In fact, look, we've just fixed. Look what this does now, and that helps propel people along. And I think it propelled the community. And one of the side effects, and I think this is fascinating, is a lot of that community then became like our voice. They went and told everybody else, look at what these guys are making, look at the excitement, and the infection spread. So I'm glad that's how it came across, because honestly, that I think that's how we are. It's we just get so involved in it. It doesn't matter what IP it is. Give us anything. We'll make a game out of it, and we'll live and breathe it. We're great at that.
That's great. Yeah, excellent. That's great. Okay. By the way, so you mentioned tennis, right? Tennis was a natural transition.
Superstars Tennis.
Superstars Tennis, I think, because you worked in virtual tennis, so it was natural in a way. Maybe.
Well, it was. So it was a case of, so how it started out was take virtual tennis, put the Sonic characters in it, put some other Sega IPs in it, done, ship it. But of course, because we can't help ourselves, Trav at the time, the lead designer, this is Travis Ryan, wanted some mini games. Like, well, we've virtually tested mini games. So you've got the ones with the fruit rolling down the thing. Let's do some, and we'll base them on other Sega IPs. So we'll bring some other things. So Virtua Cop is a good example. Now, you can't make a tennis minigame out of Virtua Cop. You're moving a cursor around the screen and shooting balls at things. We've just basically made Virtua Cop in a tennis game. And so I think what resonated is that side of it, which was never really meant to be as developed as it was, actually kind of caught on and became, again, like the kind of eventually career modes we had in OutRun, was a thing which we started developing, became a core premise of both tennis and then racing, and transformed as a side effect. It was like, well, we need some kind of mission mode because that's how you get some longevity so you can go back and replay things rather than just racing round and round in circles. And they're saying with tennis, we need something to do which is just not tennis, just to break it up a bit. Um, so yeah, it got mad. I can't even remember all the mini games, but if we could find a tenuous link, it's like, what if we had zombies on the pitch and we could call it House of the Dead? Yeah, let's do that. So,
Okay. Awesome. So how do you go from a tennis game to a racing game? Obviously, Sega probably wanted to do a racing game, but that's not quite such a natural transition from virtual tennis to Sega Superstars Tennis. Okay, but now
yeah. Well,
racing.
so the original All-Star Racing was kind of weird because we'd set out. Sega had come to us and said, "We've done a test game. Why not do a racing game? You're a racing game specialist. You've ported OutRun, you've done Talking and all the rest of it." So we're like,
Yeah.
okay. But the interesting thing was, we converted a lot of racing games. We never actually made one. And the start of racing was kind of fascinating because, again, this is Trav being Trav. We didn't start out to have everybody in cars or bikes. We actually wanted to have Sonic on foot. We'd have
Okay.
Jet Set Radio characters skating. We would have some characters in cars if it made sense. If it was, let's say we brought in the Virtua Fighter characters who could drive a Ferrari, okay, that means we can put them in. And everybody had a different mode of transport, and we built a prototype, and it was horrible. It was awful. Because the problem was, of course, if you're on foot and you get hit by a car, it's got to do something. You've got to get knocked off a course, but the cars were then bullying their way around the track. Well,
Yeah.
that's no fun for anybody. So we're like, okay, well, that doesn't work. The characters who could fly, because we had Tails and we put him in the biplane from Sonic 2, ignored the racetrack and just flew round the start line. They didn't bother following the course. And we're going like, well, that's not going to work, is it? How are we going to do that? You can see how we that idea stuck with us because that's kind of how Transformed happened. We've got to go back to that plane thing and solve that problem. And so one day we just went, this ain't working. Why don't we put them all in cars? Because when we got Amy Rose in the car, she was in like a Volkswagen Beetle. It wasn't the car you see in the final game. It was a different thing. And we put that car in, and then one night, one of the guys made the car drift, very much like OutRun. And we took one look at it and went, it's been staring us in the face. What we should do is, what we do with virtual tennis, we'll make All-Star Racing. It's basically OutRun, but with Sonic characters, because we know how to make OutRun. Solved. And that became the game overnight. And then what we tried desperately to do is we wanted to make a racing game, but we didn't. We were worried about comparisons with the other racing game out there with all the characters in it. Is it Mario Kart? It's a little known.
Never heard of it.
We don't have a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
But we wanted to try and avoid becoming like compared to that because this is how I say it. Mario Kart's not really a racing game. It's more of a weapons game. It's more, it's all about how the items interact. It's paper, scissors, stone. The racing is there. It's an activity, but it's not primary. What we wanted to do was make a racing game and try and avoid the weaponry, but we kept having somebody tap us on the back at Sega Europe saying, put weapons in it like Mario Kart, put weapons in it like Mario Kart. It'd be great, put weapons in it. We're going like, but we don't want to be like Mario Kart. We've got these wonderful Sega characters in these Sega locations. We think that's enough. We don't need it. And so we were pushed to try and do all kinds of things. So we had the cars, the trikes, and all the rest of it. We had a thing called the weapon roulette, which was like a fruit machine which popped down at the top of the screen.
Yep.
And that would do something where it would change the race up. So it would either propel the person in last place to first, so it was a nice way you could do to balance the game out, or it caused a thunderstorm, so the track got really slippy and all the cars were slipping around. And it, of course, gave you some weapons as part of those. And we eventually went, you know what, the weapon stuff's just too good, isn't it? We're going to have to get rid of this because it's a bit random. But then we went, okay, but the problem we've got is we've still got this issue of balance because we want it to be a racing game foremost. How do you help somebody at the back get to the front? Now, Mario Kart is dead simple. They have a weapon which is designed to stop the person at the front and the players at the back go through. And it's rubber banded in a way. You watch the weapons. If you're at the back, you get good items in Mario Kart.
Yes.
If you're at the front, you get terrible items in Mario Kart.
That's true.
And we hated that. It's like, well, it's not really fair. We want it to be more about the skill of racing. So that's where the All-Star moves came from. Because we got it in tennis and we went, well, hang on a minute. What if we let you charge a meter and we could top it up if you're just in last place? And at least it gives you a chance to press a button and have a boost for the race to try and help you. And we can use the length of time you're in that move to decide how much help we want to give you. We can base that on position, how the race has gone,
Hmm.
a bunch of telemetry, and that became it. And then he'd accidentally made the game, and that's the reality of it. We kind of found his way to it rather than intentionally set off to do it. Boy, did we learn a lot of lessons on that game. Every game you make some mistakes, so you go, we're never doing that again. On that one, we went, well, if we did 3 tracks per location, let's never do that again. Let's do 1 track per location.
Okay, okay. This week's episode of the Sega Lounge is brought to you by Carboat Plane Vehicles. Look, is it a car? Is it a boat? Is it a plane? Yes! When you need to go to work, shopping, or just race an anthropomorphic animal, Carboat Plane Vehicles are your best pick. Don't settle for less than a carboat plane. Whether you're flying through the clouds near a sanctuary in the sky or having a race for the ages, go to one of our dealerships and ask one of our representatives for the carboat plane that's right for you. Carboat Plane Vehicles, the right choice for everyone, including Danica's ass. And then obviously Transformed was a whole different beast, right?
Well, again, so we'd finished racing, and it was pretty much determined that had gone really well,
Mhm.
but we had a bunch of ideas left over. So the plane thing was still bugging us, and the transform thing didn't actually surface in Sumo necessarily. It was a thing we were trying to figure out. Are we ever going to fix that? Because I'd like to fix that problem. But Simon Woodruff down at Sega was their kind of creative director. And at this point, Craig Duncan was the development director in charge of the team. So he was my boss. And Simon and Craig have got like an interesting history. They've worked together at different firms. And Simon had decided to go like, that racing game, mate, what if you had transforming vehicles? And that was it. And we just went, oh, that'd be good. Yeah. And so we went off to solve it. And we spent about 6 months to just under the year trying to get that working. We made 1 track to try and solve it because again, we knew the problem was going to be if you change the route and everybody doesn't change the route at the same time, people will just go off and do their own thing. So we went right, okay, so we'll have a dry track, then we'll flood it somehow, so everyone's now in boats, and then we'll blow it up in some way, so everyone's
Okay.
forced to fly. And the track stuff, the racing stuff was dead simple because it was mostly stolen from the original racing game. The water stuff was complicated. So we built this track and it was effectively around a caldera, which is a flooded volcano.
Hmm.
We blow the volcano up so that floods water down the track. So you're racing downhill in water. And the amount of time to get the physics for that right and make it feel good was astonishing because you either get pushed along and you've got no control and it's really hairy, or you end up not moving at the same rate of the water and it looks weird. You can't sort it out in your head. So we actually learned that going downhill in water, we needed to avoid that a little bit, or at least control the depth of the angles. Flooding the bomber track was fine. As soon as you're on level water, you're racing in water, you can go at a sensible speed. And interestingly, racing uphill through water, because it slowed the cars down, gave you a lot more time to control it, be quite technical. And we went, oh, there's an interesting idea. We might find a use for that. But the planes were the nightmare because you've got to find some way of keeping you to a course. So the
Yes.
first thing we did is we go right. First of all, we've got to force when you transform. We can't give you the choice. We might find a way. So we make you go for a ring to transform, and then we did a bunch of rings in the air. Went right. You have to fly through these rings, but it was boring. It wasn't a lot of fun. But when we made them boost rings and it gave you an advantage, that was interesting. But again, all people did was took off and then immediately turn right and fly to the finish line. Ah, oh, damn it! So we spent ages trying to figure this out, and in the end, we realised that hemming them in would probably be the answer. So could we put them in a canyon? So you can't get out the top. You're in it. You're forced to follow it. We can have shortcuts and things, and that kind of worked. And so the first strike, we basically went rip it up, throw it away. It's no good. It doesn't solve the problems the game needs. And we started on the Panzer Dragoon track.
Okay.
Look at that track. Go and play the game and look at that track, and you'll see it starts off. It's dry, and then we blow
Mhm.
up a bridge, and then you're on the water, and there's bits of water and dips and jumps, and that's because we learned how to make good water fun. And then literally it blows the road up and forces you into the air, and then you can't get out. That was us learning how to make that game.
Okay.
So that track is fundamentally how we learned to make that game. And then the other stuff kind of came secondary. So once you've got that, you can start to play with it. You can put transform zones to give you a choice of which route you want to go. So if you go that way, you're forced into being a boat, but that might be quicker, or it might have a power up. And then we started playing around with like, well, okay, so what are the interesting roles to make the race fun? You don't want to be forced between power ups and transformations. You might want to give people a choice between a boost pad or a power up, give them interesting choices. And
Mhm.
I won't take the credit for this. That by no means this is a Gareth Wilson and a Joe Neat thing. We realised once we got the right idea of that, we had to go around the tracks and start adding runoff areas and modifying the tracks. So quite late in the game, we got the tracks built, but they weren't fun enough. So we had a thing called Project Runoff, I think it was called at the time, which was to go back over the tracks and change them in subtle ways to make them more interesting, to just add more replayability. And again, organic to a nature, but we'd learnt so much from the previous games that this was a lot easier once we'd solved various problems. The boats didn't drift at the start, but it was weird because the cars did. Once we got
Okay.
the boats drifting, we went, it's weird the planes can't drift though, isn't it? And why would you drift the planes? And that's when the charge and the boost thing came out from
Mhm.
again the original game. Well, that was great. Why don't we just reuse it? And so you end up reusing the good ideas, trying to get rid of the bad ideas, and then just learning from there. So again, literally, go and play Panzer Dragoon. Once you've done this, go and play it. You'll see
Yeah,
exactly. You go.
definitely.
You can see it from my way. You went, oh, I get how they made this
Yeah.
choice.
It's funny because the game is 11 years old now,
It is. It's
right?
ancient.
Yes, 11 years old, which is mad for me. I wouldn't. I'm old. I'm getting old. But that aside, I was talking to one of my previous guests, actually, who works at SEGA of Europe, a couple of months ago or so, and we were just discussing during the interview how All Stars Racing Transformed is probably the ultimate fun racing game. Like, because it's still very much holds up today. It's still very much replayable, fun. You can pick it up. I was actually mentioning how I had been playing the game on my Steam Deck.
No,
Actually,
I did
when we
exactly that. The first thing I
and it's
downloaded was Transform. Went, oh no, it runs.
you know it's amazing. It's amazing still. So it's interesting how it still holds up. It's still I can't see. Obviously, we are going to talk about
Hey.
All Stars Racing Transformed 2 or 2024 or whatever later on during our interview. But in all seriousness, the almost perfect team. I know it's not perfect. I
It,
know you from your guys' perspective as well is not perfect, but it's a very fun game, and that's the most important thing
I
for me.
maintain it's the best game I've worked on, which is released. There you go.
Okay. Okay.
It's still my favorite project. I think we had a lot. You can see the fun we had making it.
Mhm.
It's mad. It carried through into the game. There were times where it was difficult. There were times we had problems we had to solve. There were times where there were political things where we were just arguing about silly things. There was a there was a big drive to try and explain why people were racing. It needs a story, and it's like it doesn't need a story. It's enough in what it is. You can have the fun. We don't have to explain it. I think I wasn't involved with Team Sonic Racing. Please don't get me wrong. I think that's a
Mhm.
perfectly fine game, but I can see how the story got added to that, and I'm not sure it was additive. You can see that somebody wanted to push that aspect, and I don't think it necessarily improved the game. I'm going to say. I'm being mean now. I'm going to get into trouble saying
I have
that.
no affiliation with anyone, and I can say Transformed is the better game.
Thank you.
But okay.
So it kind of comes through. So again, I think that's one of the things we would love to. We tried to work out how to one up it, and I think we reached
Mhm.
a point. It's like actually, there's not a lot we could add to it. We could go back and add more tracks and more characters, and I think, to be honest, it's a bit of a missed opportunity. We didn't do that. We should have done like a transformed, not two, but 2018 or whatever it is, and then just go and added more tracks, more characters, and I think people would be happy. The only thing I look back and I think we should have changed is the difficulty. I think the difficulty in places was a little bit too hard. Um, That's hard to get right. These
Yeah.
days, you will probably patch it a little bit to simplify it down.
Mhm.
But equally, the look on people's faces when they finally unlock ages, it's a special moment, that.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, yeah. Especially when people get the game on various platforms
Oh,
and
yes.
they have to go through all of it
It's
again.
like, oh, not again.
Yes, yes. Yes, but okay. Let's not talk about me anymore. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
St- Steve, you've been waiting for this, right?
Oh, is it
It's
the trivia
time.
questions? All right, here we go.
It's time for the Sega Lounge Challenge.
Now that you know our guests, it's time to put them to the test. It's the moment we've waited for and the moment they dread.
Welcome to your doom.
I mean, welcome to the Sega Lounge Challenge.
Oh, I like it.
Okay. The Sega Launch Challenge is something different every week. It doesn't necessarily involve trivia questions, although this week it also does, but
Okay.
not only trivia questions. So I have, and because you were so terrified of trivia, I called this the Quiz of Ages. The Quiz of
So-
Ages.
So before you continue, can I just state that I beat Ken Barlow
Okay.
at the trivia contest at Sonic Boom when Transform was announced, and it's to date the best trophy I own. So you've got some way to try your best, see if you can top that.
you need the Sega Lounge seal of approval.
I do.
So
need that,
in order
yeah.
to get the seal of approval, Steve, you have to go through 10 rounds of this quiz.
Oh my
Some are trivia questions, some are songs that you need to identify. Okay. Think you are
dear.
up for this task.
I will have a go, but this is good. This is where I go. I played a lot more Nintendo than Sega originally.
Okay, and this is where I go. These are all games you have worked on.
Oh no.
Okay.
Okay.
So no excuse. No excuse.
Fine.
Okay. So some of these are multiple choice questions, so maybe that'll make it a little bit easier. 10 rounds. Can we get I think at least 6 correct answers, right?
Now you're just piling the pressure on.
No, it's easy. It's easy. I think you'll do great. So, question number 1 in this quiz of ages. In Sega All-Stars Racing, are you familiar with this little game?
I remember that game, yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good. What's the name of Ryo Hazuki's all-star move? And this is our mandatory Shenmue question of the week.
Oh, damn it.
So I have options if you need them.
So if I remember right, this is where the forklift comes into play. So let's go.
I'm going to give you the options then. So
Go on then.
Option A, Working Man. Option B, Forklift Racer. Option C, Mad Biker.
I'm going to say it's Working Man because I'm sure it was the forklift is the thing that you get. And I'm fairly sure it was a reference to the original game because that was the job. Please tell me I'm right.
In the original game, he also raced in a forklift.
If you were Rio F.
No. In the original Shenmue game. So he worked.
Oh, you do race it.
You
do. Yeah, you did race.
Before the workday
know where this is
begins.
going.
So I don't know. I'm just telling you something. I'm giving you information, and you can do with it what you will.
So you're saying it? Well, really, when I think about it, it should probably be forklift racer, shouldn't it? Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm asking you what you think. A, B, or C? Working Man, Forklift Racer, or Mad Biker?
It's not going to be Mad Biker because I know that. So I'm going to have to go with forklift racer now. Now you've put doubt in my mind.
Sometimes your original guess is also good. So I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, you horrible swine. No, I'm going to stick with Working Man because I'm sure it was something along those lines. And I can't remember why we did that. No, I'm going to go with A. Whether I'm right or wrong, we'll see.
Final answer.
Final answer.
Working Man.
Working Man. And I'm going to be wrong and I don't care.
Steve Lycett, Your answer is correct.
You horrible man.
Yes. Welcome to the Sega Lodge Challenge.
This is brutal.
Okay,
even kidding.
1 point.
I
1
am literally
point.
sweating.
I'm glad. Okay, this is half the challenge. Half the challenge is dealing with me.
Okay. You do know I made that game like over 15 years ago or something.
Round 2 is a music round. So what I have here is a 10-second long clip of a song from a game you've worked on. And all you need to do is to identify the game.
The game. Okay.
Okay. So should be fairly easy for 1 point. Ready?
Yep. No, I reckon the original one too. It's Life is a Bore.
Could be.
Could be.
I'm not here to answer any questions. I'm just here. All right, is that your final answer? Is that your answer? I know.
I'm going to go with that one too. I'm sticking with that one too.
You're sticking with OutRun 2. Are you sure? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're sure.
The lyrics in my head.
Yes, it is OutRun 2. It is. I do think it's Night Flight though.
It is Night Flight. Sorry. No, you're right. It's Night Flight.
It is. Yes. So very good job. 1 point as well. Very good. 2 for 2. That's amazing. That's amazing, Steve. Okay. Number 3. Round 3. Question. Multiple choice question again.
Okay.
So, which of the following racetracks is not included in the Dragon Cup in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed? Okay. So, option A. So, the one that is not. 2 of them are in this, 2, and 1 of them is not. So, option A. Ocean View, the Sonic Heroes course.
Okay.
Option B. Temple Trouble, the Super Monkey Ball course. Option C. Dragon Canyon, the Panzer Dragoon course.
That's pretty much is in the Dragon Cup because it's named after that course. So that helps me out. Oh, good grief, Dragons. So they were the early ones in the start of the game because we tried to make it simpler. Ocean View, I'm fairly certain is the first course in the game, so would it be in there? Temple Trouble's one of the later ones because that's quite hard. So I'm going to say it's Temple View. I'm going with B. But I'm now trying to remember what was the first set of courses. I'm sure we ended with Panzer Dragoon because that was the easier tracks. Yeah, I'm going to with Temple View.
Temple Trouble then. So
Temple Trouble, sorry.
The Super Monkey Ball one.
Yes.
Final answer. Yes.
You're awful at this. This is like being on, do you want to be a millionaire? Honestly, the pressure I am feeling right now, I'm going to stick with B, yes. I'm going to stay with Temple Trouble.
Of course. And that's what you should do. You should stick to your original answer at all times, unless it's wrong.
Oh, God.
But it isn't. Well done. Yes. Temple Trouble. Okay. So now I know why Dragon Canyon was in the original set of the original cup, the first cup, because it's the original course, right? The original track.
The interesting thing, again, if you look at Transformed, it goes from easy to hard, and the tracks get darker and more challenging as you go. So the bright, easy, colourful tracks are at the start of the game, and the dark, forbidding, golden axie tracks at the very end. So yeah,
makes sense. Never thought about that. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Good job. Okay, so it's time for round 4, which is another song. Okay. Let's take a listen to the clip.
So that's Richard Jakes. So that I think is the main theme from Transform, but I'm questioning in my head whether that's right because it could be the main theme from All Star Racing because we use similar motifs. I'm going to go with Transform for that one. Stop it! Just give me an answer.
I'm not saying a thing. Why transform, by the way?
I think it's
Why
the
did you go
title.
with that?
It's from racing to transform. We took some classic Sega tracks and we bumped the tempo up. So if you
Mhm.
listen to the transform music, they've got quite a high tempo in the background, and that's to make them feel more racy, and that's definitely up tempo. So that's why I'm thinking it's transformed. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah, but you're not.
Oh, thank
That's it.
God.
This is the main menu. The main menu of
I thought, yeah, because
transform. Yes.
there's even variations on that, depending if you go into the options and stuff. It changes
Exactly.
the thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Very good.
But you know, I miss working with Richard Jakes. I'm going to work with Richard Jakes again. I think that's what I'm going to do.
Number 5. We're almost halfway there. You're crushing this, Steve. 4
Bothers
for
me now.
4.
I'm
It's
going to miss the rest of them because you've said 6. If I get the rest wrong, I'm done for, aren't I?
Yeah. Okay. Number 5 is one of the potentially harder ones, but because we have no options for this one.
Oh no. Okay.
Maybe you don't need them. What's the name of the PC only character in Transformed that is based on Company of Heroes 2?
Okay. So this one I do know. I was wondering which one because you PC on. I'm going. All right. So that is General Winter, and that was a name given to us by the Creative Assembly. Slightly controversial at times. That.
Okay. What else should I say? Controversial? Yeah, really? Because of the Russia thing, or no?
Well, especially probably in modern days. But no, we honestly thought what we try to do is the same as we do with any game. We will take something from their game and represent it in our game, and we'll try and do it authentically. And one of the things we did is we put the Soviet Star on the side of the tank. So there's a tank is one of the vehicles, and that
Oh, yeah.
caused some complaints. In the end, we had
Okay.
to take it out. So we were quite
Okay.
surprised by that. It was not
Okay.
meant to malice. It was certainly not a political statement. Trust me. If you know me, I am not political. Well, I am these days, but I certainly wasn't then.
Okay. Okay. Round 6. Steve, another song. Ready?
Okay. That sounds like the arcade music from Superstars Tennis. It's
Does
got
it?
the
No.
Tim Follin kind of thing. Again, it's Richard Jake's right there, I believe.
Could be.
Could be.
Could very well be. It's one of the games you've worked on. So
Do
it
you know,
could
if
be.
anybody asks me about this podcast, I am not going to recommend it, especially the trivia bit. It's great.
I've been invited on the Sega Lounge. No!
Don't do it.
Don't do it. So, your answer? Superstars Tennis?
I think it's Superstars Tennis, yeah.
Indeed. Indeed
Wow.
it is. It's Planet Superstars. It's like the arcade mode,
It's the arcade
right?
bit, yeah.
Yeah. Very good job. Okay. So that's 6 points.
So, okay, so I can stop now. Yeah.
But can we go for the perfect score? Because that's
Okay.
unheard of. That's
Okay.
unheard of. Okay, number 7. Another one without multiple choice. Another question. What's the name of the OutRun themed court in Sega Superstars Tennis?
Oh, no, I'm done
This is
for.
probably the hardest one.
No, this is tricky. So I'm trying to remember if we based it on Palm Beach or Sunshine Beach, because the two versions of Outrun. Outrun 2 is Palm Beach. Outrun 2 SP is Sunshine Beach, and I think we went with Palm Beach. No, God, no, you're asking me. I'm gonna go with Palm Beach, and I'm probably wrong because I should have probably gone with Sunshine Beach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so your answer is Palm Beach? And your answer is Steve Lycett from Sumo Digital. Incorrect. Incorrect.
Let's get one wrong eventually.
It was Coconut Beach, actually.
Oh, because it would have
Beach.
been named after the original Outrun.
After the original one.
Yes. Who's an idiot?
Yes.
There you
Yes. but close enough. Very close. Very close.
Okay.
You
Half a
had the
point.
beach.
Beach is right.
The beach was there. Okay. So final song, Steve. Okay, this is the last one. Let's see if you can identify the game.
Wow.
Nice.
I have. I would say Superstars Tennis again, but I'm not sure. Or would it be VT? It's not OutRun. It's not racing. I'm going to stick with SEGA Superstars Tennis, but that one I don't recognise, so I'm not sure where that's from.
Okay. Tennis?
Yes.
He says.
I got 6.
He says scared. Yeah. No, actually, no. It's All Stars Racing. It's the Sega Shop theme.
Sega Miles.
So it's a variation on the main theme of All Stars Racing. The menu theme, so it's
you can tell how,
but it's a little bit different.
I didn't have to use the shop. I got all the things. I just pressed the button. And
of course.
Oh, there you go. Then I mean, I'm still on 6. I'm happy.
Okay, yeah, still on 6. But so
I'm not
last two.
I was hoping for 10.
Our questions.
Build me
up. No. Wait. So 9 and 10 are going to be amazing because I know you know these for sure.
Okay.
Question 9. An exclusive character to the Wii version of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, the Mii character has a unique All-Star move as well.
Yes.
What is it called? I have options if you need them.
I'm going to need the options on this one, I think.
Really?
I voiced the Mii, so I did
really?
the voice of the male Miis and the avatars in that game.
Oh, that's awesome.
Me, woohoo! All that nonsense. I had a good day doing that.
Okay, so you should know this. Option A, party power. Option B, parade power. Option C, emerald power. And these are all-star moves in the game.
They are. I'm going to say it's party power because that one you get picked up by the Miis and they run you down the track, if I remember correctly. The parade one, I think, is Somebody Amigo, and emerald power, I think, is probably Shadow the Hedgehog.
Could be. Because it's one of the options.
Do you know, right now, I can't remember what I had for breakfast. So the fact you're asking me for something I did a lot longer ago. So I'm going to go with party power. I'm going to go with
party power. That's your final answer.
It is for now. Yes.
It is for now. It is for now.
If it's wrong, then no.
You misheard me. I said. Yes. So it's not emerald power. No.
Nope,
I believe that's Tails' all-star move. I think so. Could be Shadow, but I'm not entirely sure right now. But it's not the Mii's all-star move.
Okay.
Could be party or parade. So I think this was based on the shop, the plaza thing.
It was.
So they're all there like in a parade. So parade power was the correct. Party power is the avatar, the Xbox avatar one.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yes.
I did the voices for those two.
Okay.
That's
yeah,
what I was thinking of, obviously.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Okay.
You must love this. The look of disappointment as you realise that 10 points has just crept out of view, and you were hoping for 8 now, just as a respectable thing. 6 is acceptable. Could he get 7 just to be 1 over the target? Honestly.
That I'm gonna take these bits of you talking, and I will put them as like narration behind. Could he get 7? Let's take a listen to the final question. Final question, Steve. For glory, for the Sega Lounge seal of approval. Oh, I think this is easy. What are the 3 forms? And it had to be the final question. What are the 3 forms of unlockable character ages in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed?
So this one I know. because I was like, I. So to explain this one,
Mm.
we've been asked many, many times to try and get in the OutRun card or the Afterburner Jet or whatever it turns out to be, and I was desperately trying to think of the solution for this for ages and ages and ages. Hence ages,
Ha.
and we've struggled with it. The car is easy. It's the Daytona car. It's the Hornet from Daytona, USA. The original game, in case you're interested, not Daytona 2. The Jet is, of course, from Afterburner and is a no-brainer because, again, it's part of my holy trilogy. You've got OutRun, you've got Afterburner, you've got Space Harrier. The boat, let me tell you, took us years to figure that one out. So originally, it was going to be you were dragged along by the giant bass from Get Bass, but
Oh,
didn't work. Nobody got it. And then
okay.
we went, maybe it could be the jet ski. We should have the jet ski from Wave Runner. And then, yeah, but it's a bit obscure, that. And then one day, Sean Jean, our concept artist, he drew a Dreamcast controller as a boat. And I looked at it and I went, that is it. That is finally it. We've solved this. Because he was driving Sean mad because I kept saying to him, no, I need a boat. Work out, go and make me a boat. He's like, and he'd dig through those Sega archives looking for stuff. And that was his crowning moment. He came to me and he just went, what about this? And like, he looked at me and Andy Ritson, and I looked at Andy and I went, light shone down through the ceiling. The music played. It's like, you've done it. You've cracked it. So the Hornet from Daytona, USA, the not F-14 from Afterburner, because I actually think we did license it originally, amusingly. And then, of course, it's the Dreamcast controller as the boat. And those are the three forms of ages.
Of course, of
Oh,
course. Good job.
redeemed at the
Good
last
job.
minute.
Obviously. And I was going to ask why the Dreamcast control, but that makes a lot of sense now.
Because
Yeah.
pick me another boat. From
Exactly. I didn't have another option either, but that makes a lot of sense.
We even thought having the character run on top of the fishing controller for a bit might be quite funny. He's like, oh, maybe, but it was so perfect. Sean, honestly, a genius. Well done.
Mhm. Yeah, it makes perfect sense now. Yeah. Okay, so Steve, 7 points. I think that's amazing. That's a very good score for this
I hope
quiz
for
of
better.
ages. Yes,
Thank
it's very
you.
good. You get the official Sega launch seal of approval, which I will send to you
That's
afterwards.
good.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. It can go on
Okay,
my trophy shelf next to the trivia contest.
exactly.
Take that, Ken
exactly.
Barlow.
Okay, so Steve, thank you very much for being such a good sport and indulging me in this little game.
I enjoyed that.
So we've talked about your career, your many of your games. We would have a lot more to talk about, but obviously I don't want to keep you for that much longer. You've mentioned something that I think we all can understand that would happen. It's the difficulty in getting some characters in some of these games. Obviously also the process of choosing what works, what doesn't work, right? Was there,
Yes.
and not wanting to be controversial, but was there any character that you really, really, really fought for and couldn't get in the end in Transform, for example?
It, broadly, so picking the characters is hard because you've got to do a number of things. So you've got
Mhm.
to make sure you've got characters that anybody can pick and like, and those people might not be Sega fans. So you've got to make sure you've got a good mix of male characters, female characters, colourful characters, serious characters, something
Danica
that
Patrick.
anybody can find. Danica Patrick, which was an interesting choice that Sega made. But I'll tell you what, you should have seen the amount of interest that generated having Danica Patrick in there, and also the amount of hate that I got from suggesting that was a good idea. So that was good fun. So we try and find something for everybody, and we try and make sure we try and do a selection of Sega stuff from old classic things,
Mhm.
or upper obviously from Fantasy Zone, to modern where we can. I look back and I think we've done a relatively good job. Some of the challenges were translating the character into 3D.
Mhm.
You might see that character in the classic game, but it's never been made into 3D. So let me give you one which was always on our list but was problematic. Was Wonder Boy. We wanted to put Wonder Boy in because there's a
Mm.
definite connection with Sega there. You've got, the later games were definitely done by Sega, but the fascinating thing with Wonder Boy is nobody's quite sure who Wonder Boy belongs to. So, is it Westone? Is it Sega? Hudson did versions of Wonder Boy with their own character, Master Higgins, and all the rest of it. And we did a lot of research trying to get to the bottom of it to understand, could we use Wonder Boy? Would we need to go and get approval from somebody else, not just Sega? And that kind of put the kibosh on a bit. More recently, we were asked a lot to do this, to include the characters from Yakuza.
Okay.
You've the obvious ones. You've got Kiryu and you've got Majima and all that. And I've played through those games recently, and I realise now what a mistake it's been not to put those characters in. We didn't, and one of the reasons for that was we tried. And I know you're going to laugh when I say this. We tried to be age appropriate at times to make sure we weren't putting anybody in which could be considered violent or political or too sexy. So Bayonetta didn't make the grade on that kind of front as well. So we tried to make sure, again, we were age appropriate because these games are meant for everybody and we want everyone to play them, kids and grown-ups at the same time. And so we had some rules there. But that to me is the one I look back at and I go, those Yakuza characters were kind of made for this game.
Yes.
In the same way that Virtua Fighter characters, okay, I've broken the rules. But you see what I mean. So, those for me are the misses. We always wanted to get the OutRun card in there. And we, because it was part of us, we're part of that kind of legacy. And I could never find a way to do it. I wanted to do it for ages, but of course the OutRun car's a Ferrari and you have to go and get the license, and that's problematic. So that's why we ended up with a Daytona Hornet. So
yeah,
I like to think we did the best we could. And if you look at the PC version where we got Ryo Hazuki back in, thanks to that horrible poll I did on the Sega site, you can see that we did the closest we could do to get OutRun in there, and Afterburner, of course.
Yes. That's true.
I would have done Space Harrier for the boat because that's my holy trinity, but apparently that didn't make sense. We used the Angle one instead.
But he played Space Harrier in the game as well, in Shenmue. So
yes, he did.
Could be. Yeah. Two things. Outrun Bay is probably, if not but one of my favorite tracks in Transformed. Really, really love that. The Outrun bit, the feeling of Outrun there is amazing. And the other thing, I think the creator of Wonder Boy owns the character, Ryushi Nishizawa. I do think that's it.
That's interesting.
But I'm not sure if I think, as you said before, especially in Japan and in like previous decades, different people own different things. Like the assets were owned by Sega, perhaps maybe for one game, but then the character was owned by someone else. But I do think Ryushi Nishizawa now owns
okay, well I mean,
it
must have been a solved problem because obviously there's been a remake of kind of the classic games.
Yeah.
And again, we wanted to go.
Games have been released more recently, and he's behind them. So
and that's great to know.
Yeah.
Obviously when we work on Transform 2, it's a problem I can finally resolve. But it's we had to give up on as many characters for either legal clearance or we thought them as Sega Classic. So Echo the Dolphin, for example, we wanted to put Echo.
My God.
Might have snuck Echo into the brain's gone there. Firefighting. Burning Ranger's track. Okay. I think we snuck Echo into the Burning Ranger's track.
Yes.
Strictly speaking, not owned by Sega, published by Sega. So there's those kind of things. You have to go through all those steps and just whittle it down. And we every game we did of tennis, racing, Transformed, we had a start sheet of 200 characters we wanted to use, and then we went through the process going, is it going to work? What will it look like behind? Can we make a vehicle which works? Can we get the legal clearance? Is it a good mixture of male, female, bright, colourful, serious, whatever characters you wanted to do? We didn't, as many fans probably think, put some names on their dartboard and threw darts at them. There was a lot more thinking to it than that.
Obviously. Okay. Yeah, this is not a question. It's a statement. You need to release Transformed on current gen consoles at least, and so I'm eagerly waiting for Transform 2024.
We would absolutely love to do it.
So Sega, listening to us right now, obviously.
We totally. But here's the interesting problem though. Right now, if you've got a Series X, you can play the original game at 60 frames a second at 4K. what do you add? So
Well, uh, maybe just
maybe Wonder Boy
maybe Wonder Boy
and the
and
Yakuza
Majima and
characters.
Kiryu. Yes.
Definitely
if
go to
if
Vegeta.
if I think if the game had been released like 5 years later, perhaps you would have had just it would be mandatory to have the Yakuza characters because they were
Yes.
not as big, especially in the West. The games were not as big as they are now here. But like a few years later, yeah. Okay. So before we go, you've been working on something that you cannot really disclose,
I'd
right?
love to talk about it, but I
But
really
you're
can't.
obviously very passionate about it. Would you like to tell us a little bit about future
So,
projects,
I-
current
so, um,
projects?
so I really can't tell you much. But what I can promise you is this: it is much of the team who's worked on the Transform games and other projects. It's the same team which have worked together now for many, many years. I'm my best friends. I occasionally joke they pay me to spend time with my friends, and they kind of do. This team have been working on this game now for almost 5 years. It is in the house style. If you like our classic stuff, you're going to love this. And that's about as much as I can tell you. We're hoping it will get announced probably later this summer,
Mhm.
July, August time. So keep your eyes open for it. When you see it, you will instantly recognize it's something that we've made, and you will instantly recognize what I was saying earlier about how we take something, we look after it, we love it, we own it, we present it back. It's going to be a surprise to a lot of people, and I look forward to the reactions.
Okay. Okay, that's great. So
That's
something to
hyped
look forward to. That's yes. Well done. Well done. Steve, we always have one final question, which is always the same. And if you've researched so much about Sega, you're probably familiar with the concept of blast processing, right? So that
Oh yes.
Sega said that especially in the US that the Genesis had blast processing, right? So my question is always if you could add blast processing, which is obviously a real life thing, obviously. If you could add blast processing to anything in the world, what would it be and why?
Ooh, oh, that's great. That's great. So here's a funny fact about me. Um, I'm only just learning to drive. I've had a motorcycle license for many, many years, and I've ridden motorbikes for now over 20 years, but not a car. My first car, OutRun fans, is a Fiat Panda 4x4. Now, it's only got a little engine. It's a 0.9cc twin there, and I think it could do with a bit more pizzazz. So I would add blast processing to my Fiat Panda 4x4. We can make it happen.
Best answer ever. Yes. Well done.
It's the most ridiculous answer, but there you go.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. Hopefully we can do this again sometime because I just don't want to take up too much of your time, but hopefully
I
in
would
the
be happy to
future.
do this again, but maybe
Yeah.
not the trivia quiz.
Not the trivia questions. Okay.
I'd have a no go to trivia quiz. Can I beat seven?
Okay.
That's the thing I'd be
So
interested
let me make a note here. Make it harder.
in.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes. Got it.
man.
Got it.
Okay, understood.
Steve, thank you very much. All the best for your current and future projects. Okay. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for coming on the show.
That's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
A big thank you to the legend that is Mr. Steve Lycett for coming on the show. Hands down, one of the nicest and most fun guests I've had on the show. I hope you guys enjoyed our chat and are feeling a sudden urge to replay All Stars Racing Transformed. I know I am. It's incredible how replayable this game is and how well it holds up almost 11 years after its initial release. By the way, happy 20th anniversary to everyone at Sumo Digital and keep up the good work. Well then, it's time to once more close the doors of the lounge for the week. As per usual, remember to go to our website for more info on each guest, or if you just want to catch up on previous episodes. It's all in there. Also, if you enjoy listening to the Sega Lounge, feel free to leave it a positive review either on our website or your podcast app of choice. Thank you very much to those who have recently taken the time to do that. It's much appreciated. Be sure to come back next time for more Sega goodness. Take care of yourselves, have fun, and I'll see you all on the next episode. Bye-bye! The Sega Lounge, hosted by me, KC, and part of Radio Sega's network of live shows and podcasts. Theme song and incidental music by OSC. Find them at opussciencecollective.bandcamp.com. Got any suggestions? Drop me an email to podcast@thesegalounge.com. Find us at The Sega Lounge on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find previous episodes of the show by going to thesegalounge.com and wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. A Mixed On Productions podcast.